All right. So but he wants to be fair here, and I like what he does here near the end here, right? He says, not all bias is equal, right? Can the charge of bias, he says, be leveled at Christians? Well, certainly, and sometimes the charge is justified, right? So it's not fair, though, to assume someone has distorted the facts simply because he has a stake in the matter. Just because, a person is a Christian and believes certain things doesn't mean, and has a stake in it, right? Doesn't mean that they distort the facts in order to hold their position, right? People are not who are not neutral, he tells us, can still be fair and impartial, right? And so you have to show that they have faltered by looking carefully at the evidence itself. Right. So, yes, people can have these presuppositions, right? They can hold certain positions, but that doesn't automatically mean that they're not making their judgments with regard to the facts.
Sure. Right. And you can do this for anybody. I have grant money put to me to, show self-driving vehicles are the wave of the future. And so I'm getting millions of dollars for it. Except I find that AI can't distinguish between when to brake for an animal or a human. Yeah. Okay, there's trade-offs there. Well, it's not possible at this time, but I still like that funding. Maybe I can just say, well, at this time, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And so you can talk about, who's funding you and stuff like that. So bringing that type of bias into it is important sometimes, but not just because the cigarette manufacturers paid for this person to do a study on whether or not cigarettes were harmful. The person came back and said, yes, they are harmful. Well, okay, because they paid for it, is it still biased? Right. Well, it's okay to say, well, they came out and said it's completely fine for you, smoke up. Okay, maybe we can question. Are they just, are they a principled person, or are they, are they in it for the money, honey? Right. So an illustration he gives us is kind of, and I'll modify it here. Mary thinks that her daughter is really, really smart. Right. Well, of course she thinks that. Yeah. She's biased. That's her daughter, right? What we want to do is look at the facts, and we find out that she, aced the ACT tests. Well, now we have some facts. So notice Mary's bias with regard to this is my daughter, really doesn't have a whole lot to do with what the facts tell us, right? And so there can be bias as long as the conclusion that a person is making is based on the facts. That's what we want to see, and so that's what he's getting at here, right? So, for instance, the Jesus Seminar folks might claim, well, the reason why the apostles said that is because they're Christians. Of course they're going to say that. They're biased. Well, wait a minute. Let's kind of examine the facts and see, does their claims, adhere to what the facts seem to say. So the basic idea, yes, you can have bias, but you still need to be concerned about what the facts say. Right. So a theist is not so encumbered. She believes in the laws of nature, but also is open to the possibility of supernatural intervention. Both are consistent within her worldview. So again, that's why another reason it's important to talk about worldview. She can judge the evidence on its own merits, unhindered by a philosophy that automatically eliminates the supernatural options before the evidence receives a hearing. Right. And so, it's one of those things where then you have to be careful of allowing too much in. And that's important. But if she's giving reasons, then you can have a better understanding of why she would adhere to that position. But just to say the soul doesn't exist because it's not material and only material things exist. Well, okay, that's kind of a circular defeater. A bad one too.
Argument. Yeah, really. Yeah. And so, ironically, the Christian's bias, he says, broadens her categories. Right? How is that? Well, it makes her more open, at least open-minded about what are the possibilities and not less, right? She has a greater chance of discovering truth because she can follow the evidence wherever it leads, right? So if it leads to a supernatural cause, okay, well that the Christian then would be open to that, right? In this instance, it doesn't. It leads to a physical cause. Okay, the Christian can be open to that, right? So notice this is a critical distinction. The Christian is we might say allows for more broader explanations to be brought to the table instead of just a narrow focus on just physical explanations.
Right. So if you have a modern day healing, I prayed for me to be able to get out of a wheelchair, and I don't have any legs in my muscles, and I stood up, and all of a sudden I had muscles and I could walk, and this is something that we've been praying about for 40 years, and this is an actual case. I'll put the link in the description for the video, and this woman, she gets up and walks, and her mom comes over and says, "Honey, you've got muscles in your legs." Well, only a naturalistic explanation can do that. We might not know what it is, but it has to be natural. Why? Well, because I don't want to allow that divine foot to get in the door.
That's right. Miracles can't happen.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Again, the Christian would also have to be concerned about, well, okay, is this well documented, or is this person receiving money for it? So something along those lines. This one case in particular that I'll link in the description is completely bizarre in the sense that it defies the naturalistic explanation. Right. So ultimately, the issue isn't bias, but distortion, right?
Distortion, right?
That's what we care about. Are we is the expert speaking outside of where they should be, or are they not allowing certain explanations because they just can't allow for that explanation to come in?
Or does the bias force them to kind of distort the facts, right, and look at them differently as opposed to what they should be looked at, the way they should be looked at.
So it's unsound, for example, to say that because the gospel writers were Christians, their testimony can't be trusted. Just as you could say that about any division of any science. You can't trust scientists that believe in the human genome because they're biased. Well, okay, but if they can show you that, the genome exists and here's how they map it and here are the implications for it, well, that's better reasons to understand where they come from. So just because someone is biased doesn't mean that it's improper bias. Right. Conversely, a non-believer's conclusion should not be dismissed because he is not among the faithful. Right. All atheists lie, therefore don't trust anything they say.
Right. They're biased. We can't. We can't accept what they say. Well, that's not necessarily the case, right?
So in both cases, we have to look at the reasons themselves. This is the heart of the road scholar. Asking the questions, why do they believe that? And that goes for anybody. Yeah.